You're running in the wrong direction, Mercy! You guys got baited to the highest degree. There is nothing quite as divisive in Overwatch as competitive play. We keep talking about optimal ways of approaching the system to make for the best gameplay experience possible and to gain as much SR as we can at the end of the day. One such discussion has been held since what feels like the dawn of its implementation, and it's about whether or not taking the hit in ping is worth it to have better competitive matches. Whether you want to switch from East to West Coast or go from Europe over the pond to the US. A lot of memes have solidified over the years, leading especially high-ranked players to believe that every one step is an upgrade. East Coast makes for a better experience than EU, and West Coast makes for a better experience than East Coast. But where does that consensus come from? And are these things really to be believed, considering a lot of them are said in joking fashion? I mean, there are a lot of players out there who firmly believe that to be the case. Well, in today's video, I want to unwrap the history of the server switching culture. Through observation of many different players on many different servers and my own experience of playing on NA for about a year, I want you to be able to join the discussion. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first thing I want to get out of the way is the fact that there are good reasons for why people believe all of these things to be true. With LA being on the West Coast and LA being the home of the Overwatch League, you are going to find a lot of pro players when participating in matches on those servers. Now, truthfully, an Overwatch League player playing in the Overwatch League usually displays a different level of performance than an Overwatch League player on ladder. A lot of them really are not trying anywhere near as hard because they just do it for fun rather than for work. But needless to say that a lot of them are better than most of us at the game, even when they're not trying very hard. Following the trend of trying to get pro players on your team, some people out there do go out of their way to try and VPN over to those servers. And as such, you are left with more players on East Coast who don't take the game as seriously as those who specifically try to improve their match experience by getting into those matches with pro players. How much of a drop-down effect does that have on ranks below Grandmaster? Honestly, I have a hard time commenting on that as I don't really have any experience playing on West Coast, with Overwatch defaulting me to the closer East Coast servers. Needless to say that with many serious players leaving for West Coast, East Coast embraced its meme nature with wonderful compositions such as the East Coast Special, which really is any composition that does not have any right to be functional but somehow ends up winning. And where does EU stand in that whole equation? Well, considering the heavy ping penalty that you get when trying to VPN from EU over to West Coast servers, it isn't actually the most prominent thing to do. Where East Coast matches have degraded over time with West Coast becoming the home of Overwatch Pro players, Europe too lost a lot of strong ladder players to the pro scene. But why would EU players bother switching to East Coast considering that they are suffering the same problem? A big reason that you will often hear is communication. Due to the obvious issue of language barrier, communication is not anywhere near as prominent on EU than on NA. But there's another reason for why players have started migrating. Content creators. Now we all know about stream snipers trying to get into matches with content creators who then mess with them because they are jerks like that. But there are very good reasons for following them over to NA even if you don't specifically snipe their matches. For one, America's content creation scene is much more prominent than Europe's. You will find more well-known faces over on the NA servers, and because a lot of YouTubers and streamers are friends across nations, you will find many of them switch over to play with their buddies on NA. And that further adds to the degradation of match quality on the EU servers, considering that content creators are much more likely to be taking their matches a bit more seriously. But there's another side effect that goes with that. Players who are in a match with somebody who is A, currently live streaming, and B, fairly well known, are feeling a bit of social pressure. As much as we know that stream sniping is a problem, if we disregard those isolated instances, then more players in large feel that they are held accountable for their actions. Karq has highlighted how he rarely comes across players bad-mouthing each other when he is in their match, but then hears much more of it on an alt account where nobody knows it's him. So besides the obvious, oh my god, I love your content type of players, others are trying to get into those matches so that the social pressure drives their teammates to actually try their best, thus contributing to better match quality overall. And that is fine and dandy for GM players, but what about us? You know, us people who are not well known, and us people who are not high ranked enough to get into matches with content creators. Well, worry not my friends, because your friendly neighborhood no-name has the answer. Really, it does not make a big difference to me. A couple years back I made a video highlighting the differences I found playing on EU versus NA servers, and I came to the conclusion that EU players display better mechanical skill as they are hugely reliant on themselves with a lack of communication, while NA players are making up for mechanical deficits by superior team play. At this point, it kinda depends on what kind of person you are. I have personally grown very annoyed of the constant stream of communication because a lot of things that NA players deem worth communicating are just useless information to me. community, and as such, it is more distracting than anything else. Just to like quote what they said that they thought was of value, I killed 2, how did we not win this? You get what I'm saying? That's peak voice chat usage right there, dude. Peak voice chat usage. But if you want better, more communication, then yes, taking the ping penalty might be worth it for you. Back when I was actively grinding ranked, I would switch over to NA servers to hit Grandmaster for my bonus competitive points because I learned that they very often completely fall apart without proper communication. I mean, I had people literally throw games because somebody was not in voice chat. At which point, superior mechanical skill is making these matchups much more easy. Europe, by comparison, demands more individual skill to make up for the lack of communication. And because you can practice yourself into getting better, but you can't practice your teammates into actually communicating, I found playing on EU is a tad bit more difficult. But that is also only my experience. You will hear of people telling you completely different stories because it takes 6 players to make a match pleasant, but only 1 to ruin it. By sheer luck, or the lack thereof, you can come to a much different conclusion. As somebody who has been playing Overwatch for many years now, and as somebody who is not good enough to be mingling at the top of the top with all the other streamers, I personally value a good ping, and I much prefer the European mindset. When it comes to toxicity, some people will tell you that Europe is much worse than NA, but I think it's a matter of perspective. It's just banter, mate, has become a meme for a reason. It's because we live in a culture where making fun of each other without malicious intent is kind of normal. But to outsiders, it probably comes off as toxic. I swear to God, if I nano boosted my soldier, he would find a way not to hit shit while having aimbot on. I'm not even kidding. On NA, I get the urge to want to smash my head into a wall because rather than blunt toxicity, NA players feel the need to discuss every last thing to the tiniest detail. No, I do not care about why our Genji was feeding on the first point when we are still trying to defend second. No, you do not know how to play Reinhardt better than this Reinhardt 1 trick that we currently have on our team. So please, just stop arguing. Over the past few months of me playing competitive play again in Masters, I've come across a surprising amount of players who are actually willing to communicate on EU. Whether or not that makes me lucky, or if it suggests that more communication is taking place these days, is hard to tell given this small sample size. But I just prefer being blunt and direct over passive-aggressive and petty.
How many did you have in your range?
Just fuck off, okay?
Dude, you suck, you do nothing on the game.
Maybe he would heal if we weren't such a little bitch. Jesus Christ, man. Somebody had to say it. And obviously, I get to keep my better ping. And if you are worried about how much the ping is gonna mess with you if you do decide to switch, trust me when I say that, you can definitely get used to it. But you might have to alter your playstyle a bit. You should be recalling a bit more preemptively as Tracer because the ping can still get you killed while in the recall animation. You shouldn't be aggressively peeking snipers because you will definitely get fragged around corners. And your shield uptime on Reinhardt should take the ping into consideration as you are still going to take damage for the first second of your shield being visibly up on your screen. Usually, it takes me a couple days to get used to the ping and lead my shots properly on Zenyatta with that disadvantage in mind, but I'm also not your average pro player, so I'm sure that many of you can adjust even more quickly than that. I do suggest committing to one server though, especially if you play projectile heroes, because the way you aim is a tad bit different in how much you have to lead your shots, so for the best consistent performance, whether on high or low ping, try to get used to one of them rather than switching on a whim. In conclusion, no matter which other servers you decide to go for, there will always be a hefty dose of luck involved in the result of your matches. Are people going to communicate? Are the things people will talk about even going to be useful? Is somebody going to be toxic? Are we going to be able to form a proper team composition? Every last thing is up to the matchmaking lottery. And considering my own experience, I figure that the difference between East Coast and Europe is negligible, and it comes down to what kind of general player mentality you prefer. Want to increase the chances of people talking, period? East Coast is going to give it to you. Even if the things they talk about aren't always useful. At least they're talking. Prefer banter over useless arguing and want to keep the good ping? Just stay on EU. Yes, I did manage to get GM on NA for what I consider free, but we're talking about a 200 SR difference going from 3800 to 4K just for the reward. Going from EU to NA is not gonna turn a diamond player into a top 500 one on the basis of communication alone. But if you are in the Grandmaster range of SR, then there are good reasons for playing East Coast over EU. Because you are improving your chances of running into content creators in your matches, which also increases the chances of your teammates taking the game more seriously because they suddenly feel like they are held accountable for their actions. On top of that, communication becomes increasingly more important the higher in rank you get, so there's a good reason to be switching to NA at that point. But you know what? I'm only one man that can play the game for only so much time, and only watch a limited amount of streams. So what are your experiences? Anyone below Diamond who can confirm an improvement in match quality going from EU to NA? Or maybe any fellow Masters players who made completely different experiences than me? Feel free to share all of your thoughts surrounding the subject in question down in the comment section below. While you're down there, don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you guys next time.